If you were expecting that I would say that the timing of death of the body is predetermined, then I am here to disappoint you. Because the timing of death is not predetermined at all. Neither is death the outcome of the common labels we use, such as destiny. It would be helpful if everyone knew their expiration date, but that is not the case. Of course, I am presenting this assertive statement, as always, based on the teachings of the Gita and the Upanishads and our own experience, backed by facts. Through this video, you will appreciate the reasoning from my perspective and the conclusion that I draw that the timing of death is not predetermined. To be clear, because it is not predetermined, I am not saying that you can forever postpone the death of a body. Someday this body will die. As the old saying goes, death and taxes are always certain. In a humorous way, I can add that taxes always show up on time and can be called predetermined, but not death. Death is an inevitable aspect of human existence. It has intrigued and concerned humanity since time immemorial. In the Hindu philosophy, death is not merely the cessation of physical life, but it is a profound transition of the soul through various realms of existence. And it is guided by the deeds and karma accumulated during one's lifetime. The question of whether the time of death is predetermined weaves the threads of beliefs, karma, and cosmic order. This inquiry into the subject of the timing of death dwells into the intricate fabric of belief systems that shape the understanding of life and death. Exploring this topic requires unraveling concepts from ancient texts, philosophical treatises, and spiritual teachings. These offer profound insights into the nature of existence, death of this body, and the journey of life energy or the soul. Before we go deeper into the learnings from the Gita and the Upanishads and talk about the timing or the lack of for death of the body, for a moment let us indulge in what you see in your own life and around you. Why not talk about facts? You see, global life expectancy was 47 years in 1900. It went up to 68 in 1950. And by 2019, it had nearly risen to 79 years. Global life expectancy has increased by more than 6 years just between 2000 and 2019. These stats of average life expectancy are from published journals, which I have quoted in the description below. The large reduction in child mortality has played an important role in increasing life expectancy. And you know it, I know it, life expectancy has increased at all ages. Infants, children, adults, and the elderly are all less likely to die than in the past, and death is being delayed. This extraordinary rise is the result of a wide range of advances in health, in nutrition, clean water, sanitation, neonatal health care, antibiotics, and other technological and public health efforts. There is an overall improvement in living standards, economic growth, and poverty reduction. Along with all of this, many predictions of the limit of life expectancy have been broken. You know firsthand, if you're planning for retirement, you know that retirement planning factors life expectancy anywhere between 85 to 92 years of age. Retirement planners are not saying, don't worry, just plan to live till 60 or 65. No. They are asking you to plan for more. They and even you want your savings to last till at least 85 years of age or more. But life expectancy can go also in the opposite direction, meaning reduce. In fact, life expectancy fell to 77 in 2020 and dropped further to just over 76 years in 2021. COVID, drug overdoses, and accidental injury accounted for about 2/3 of the decline in life expectancy just in the last 4 years. Other reasons included heart and liver diseases and suicides. The drop in life expectancy would have been even greater if it was not for the decreases in the death from chronic lung diseases, pneumonia, influenza, and Alzheimer's disease. The advances in science and medicine is precisely the reason why we go to a doctor in the case of an ailment. Even in the case of a life-threatening illness, we still go to a doctor because we know there is a potential for extending life. Again, it does not mean that medicine or lifestyle changes always work, since the body has to die someday. It could be a death due to natural death or something unfortunate like an accident. But it is a fact, my friends, that on an average, we are living longer, much longer than our ancestors. That's a practical aspect you are observing. Now let's look at the Gita and the Upanishads. Central to the teachings is the concept of time as a cyclical rather than linear. The Gita and Upanishads describe time as divided into cosmic cycles, each characterized by its unique spiritual and moral qualities. Within these cycles, human life unfolds through the body with birth, growth, decay, and ultimately death of the body. The timing of death is influenced by a complex interplay of factors, and it is not destiny. The interplay of factors includes one's own karma or actions, action of others upon you, external factors, and your own spiritual evolution. The actions of others play such a crucial role in deciding the timing of death. An individual could be the safest driver and drive on a clear road, only to land in a car accident because of a drunk driver who decided to just veer from the opposite direction and collide head on. The action of someone else now has influenced death. Gita and Upanishad give you the choice to act, and so does it to others as well. The choices of each crisscross each other, and sometimes when those choices crisscross and become impactful, results in death. The concept of karma and action underscores the interconnectedness of actions and consequences across the lifetime between you and others. Gita and the Upanishads uphold the concept of free will. Individuals have the freedom to make choices and take actions in their current life, which can influence their current karma, future karma, and consequently their future circumstances, including the timing of death. Karma, the law of cause and effect, plays a pivotal role in determining the timing of death. And by karma here, I mean the actions performed in one's own lifetime and actions performed by others, because they create an intricate web of consequences that shape not only the current life but also all subsequent existences. Again, these actions are one's own actions and the impact of action by others. The moment of death is viewed as a pivotal juncture where the cumulative effects of past and current actions manifest. The concept of prarabdha karma specifically refers to the portion of karma from past lives that may manifest in the present life, influencing events such as birth, lifespan, and death. But the key here, my friends, is the manifestation of actions from past life depends on the actions taken by others and your own choices that you make out of the free will that you have in your current life. Sometimes the choices you make or others may make help you dodge the effects of karma. But on other occasions, the actions of others or your own action may be so impactful that you succumb to it. In other cases, it is just the condition of the body and its ability to absorb is no longer capable of absorbing the impact, which results in death. A simple example, a patient dying on the operation table in spite of the doctor's best efforts because the body was just not ready to take on any more treatment. When that happens, one takes shelter by saying death is predetermined and hence it happened. But by now in this video, you know that is not the case, because timing of death is influenced by complex interplay of factors, which is again one's karma or own actions, actions of others upon you, external factors, and your own spiritual evolution. Now, one other reason one may think death is predetermined is because of the acknowledgement of some cosmic plan. It is believed that the universe operates according to a grand design where individual destinies are intertwined with cosmic forces. The timing of events, including death, is viewed as part of this larger cosmic order that is guided by divine providence and the interplay of cosmic energies. The Upanishads and Gita acknowledge a cosmic plan, but it refers to a cosmic law that governs all beings. There is equanimity in that governance. The cosmic law is rooted in the concept of dharma, righteous duty, on which I have done a complete video. It underscores the idea that everyone's lifespan and the circumstances of their death are part of a larger cosmic plan shaped by their actions and actions of others in the current and the past lives. While you may think of a predetermined lifespan influenced by karma and cosmic order, you need to appreciate the transformative power of spiritual practices that can have on your lifespan. The performance of righteous deeds of dharma, spiritual practices or sadhana, and seeking divine grace through devotion or bhakti are considered ways by the Gita and the Upanishad to mitigate to the harsher effects of negative karma and potentially alter the timing of death. These practices, when done with an intention of surrender or sharanagati, purify the mind, elevate consciousness, and align one's action with higher spiritual principles. Like the adage, do good, be good, and see good everywhere, spiritual practices like yoga, meditation, devotion, surrender are emphasized throughout one's life to cultivate that inner purity, create that detachment, and more importantly, be ready for that moment of death. Let me emphasize again, that moment of death is not a trigger of destiny, but an outcome of a confluence of complex factors. The Gita does not talk about the timing of death or anything about it being predetermined. Instead, It focuses on how you should prepare for your death. In chapters 7 and 8, Krishna talks of contemplation, having a single-minded focus, pulling all the sense organs and mind inwards, detaching from the external world, and then channeling that energy within so that the life force rises up in a guided manner like a satellite being guided in the orbit. The great seers were able to call death of their body on demand. They chose and decided the opportune time for their life's force to leave the body. How did they do that? They did so because of the guidance of Gita and transforming spiritually through that single-minded focus, pulling inwards. This is exactly what the Upanishads also teach us. But you know it, I know it, death of the body can come unexpectedly for many of us. One may not have the time to pull all the senses inward, channel the energy, watch the breath, like how the great seers of the saints were able to do. That's why Gita comes to the rescue again, and it gives us an alternate path to all of us. The Upanishads and Gita invite deep reflection on the nature of existence and the mysteries of life and death. It encourages individuals to contemplate the impermanence of the physical body and the eternal nature of life energy or divinity that pervades all through, which you can also call it the soul. And this life energy transcends death and continues its journey through the cycles of reincarnation. By you identifying with this life energy or eternal soul or Atman, however you want to call it, individuals can then attain freedom from the constraints of actions and, more importantly, this concept called death. Gita encourages individuals to live a life of righteousness, perform their duties selflessly, and cultivate spiritual knowledge and devotion. You see, by understanding death of the body as a natural transition and focusing on spiritual growth, the Gita guides seekers towards attaining ultimate liberation and realizing their identity beyond the limitations of the body. That is liberation. Liberation is not about any fancy state or a place. It is about going beyond this body and relating to that life energy. The Gita speaks of the role of divine grace and assistance during the time of death. It is believed that the presence of holy beings, chanting of sacred mantras, and the recitation of prayers can create a spiritually uplifting environment for the departing life energy or soul when this body dies. Saints and realized masters are revered for their ability to guide souls towards higher realms or liberation through their teachings. Precisely the reason why that being spiritual is a 24/7 way of leading one's life. It is not a selective engagement. Being associated with like thinkers, following the Panchakala Kriya or spiritual activities at different times of the day are necessary. And just as a reminder, I did a whole video series on Panchakala Kriya. Contemplating on divinity and having the name you have for the divine on your lips all the time achieves the purpose of channeling your energy within, irrespective of the cause of death or the time of death. You don't get to choose during an accident the time of death, but having the name on the lips, having the name of the divine on the lips is what helps you channel that. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for one who is born, death is certain, and for one who has died, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament at all. The timing of death, therefore, is seen as a reflection and confluence of action cosmic forces, and the inquiry of spiritual knowledge. And that inquiry, having the name of the divine always on your lips, leads the soul or the life energy towards its next phase of spiritual evolution. In conclusion, while the timing of death is influenced by actions of yours and actions of others and the cosmic order, there is also room for individual agency and spiritual effort to shape actually the destiny. The interplay between karma, divine will, and personal choices underscore the complexity of this concept. Ultimately, Gita and the Upanishads are the only scriptures that offer you a framework that encourages individuals to live virtuously and seek spiritual growth, and strive towards realizing the true nature beyond the limitations of birth and death. Scriptures like the Gita and the Upanishad, and I'm sure there's some more of that which kind of relate in the same direction, are the ones that you need as a framework and help you inquire and understand the true meaning of death of the body. I hope this video has helped dispel some of the age-old beliefs that we have had that the timing of death is all about destiny, when it is actually not. Timing of death is a complex factor, but it is based on your actions, actions of others, cosmic forces that happen all around you, and your own spiritual evolution. Yes, the body has to die someday. When is in no one's hands, because the timing is never certain, neither is it a matter of fate or destiny. You just got to take it when it comes. But the key is to be prepared for it. Prepared for it the way Krishna describes in the Gita. Prepared for it by having the name of the divine on your lips all time, so that it doesn't matter when death occurs, because you always have the name of the divine. And that name of the divine helps you channel the life forces that erupt and be guided like a spacecraft in the orbit. Don't delay. Get going on the spiritual path. Get started. Have the name of the divine. Reflect and think about the divine all time. It's a 24/7 engagement. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay blessed. In all these years of spiritual inquiry, a topic that has bothered me quite often is this aspect of karma and overcoming karma. I've struggled for quite a while to gain a clear, practical approach to overcome karma. It was again only through the Gita and the Upanishads that I was able to better understand and learn the techniques, and more importantly, apply it. That's what I'm going to cover today in this video, is the approach to overcome karma. Karma in its simplistic sense, as you may know, is made up of cause and effect of an action. Now, since action is unavoidable for anyone, you live a life of effects which then become a cause again. It is a real cyclical process. No one can escape this cyclical route, as even inaction is action. As Krishna says in the Gita, no one stays without performing an action. The flip side of this cyclical cause and effect means there is no way you can free or jump out of the cyclical wheel. You're always constantly on this wheel of cause and effect. You're caught in this tsunami of cause and effect. Now, for the believers in liberation or moksha, this becomes even more important, as it is only by getting out of the wheel of cause and effect that one can attain liberation. There are countless lectures and messages on karma and liberation. For several years, I've been inundated, overwhelmed with these messages on the problem of karma, but rarely have seen a practical approach to overcome it. Rarely, not many teachings out there. Specifically on what should one actually do to get out of this cycle of cause and effect, to get out of this wheel. The problem is even more severe since your action or your cause or your effect is not just because of what you do, but it's also because of the actions of others. If two kids were fighting with each other as an example, and you go and ask one of them for the reason for the fight, they probably will point to the undesirable behavior of the other kid. Now, when you ask the second kid on why he or she behaved a certain way, the kid probably will point to something else as the trigger for that behavior, which is actions of others significantly influence your own reaction and response. And this is because we are just a small part of this complex universe. And there are billions and billions and trillions of actions happening all the time. You're either the recipient of some of those actions and their effects, or you could be the instigator of some of those actions and effects. Bottom line, the concept of karma makes you a prisoner with so many chains around you that you just cannot free yourself. Traditional literature breaks karma into categories for the ease of understanding. I'd like to cover that so that you get a better handle on what are we talking about here. So traditional literature says you have this massive debt of karma or effects of previous lives accumulated in a treasury with your name attached to it, and that is given a name called Sanchita karma. The belief is that through each instance of your life, you redeem some of the debt assigned to you. And how do you redeem it? You do it by experiencing the effects. The portion of the karma taken from this Sanchita karma treasury that you redeem in this instance of your life is also called prarabdha karma. That is why traditional literature says everyone's born with some prarabdha karma. Now, in redeeming that portion of karma in this life, you are once again performing actions. And for those actions, you will have once again effects happening. Some of these effects you redeem in this life itself, and some of them becomes a backlog, a pipeline that gets accumulated in the Sanchita karma debt treasury. So you're putting it back in that bank of Sanchita karma. This will then carry forward to your next instance of life and so on and so on. This forward accumulation is also given a name. It's called agami karma. Now, do you notice through this approach of Sanchita karma, prarabdha karma and agami karma, you are further and further caught in the maze with no way of freeing up yourself or getting liberated from that cycle of cause and effect. Gita in the Krishna says, karma is such a complex topic to understand simply because you're caught in the spaghetti of actions by billions and billions of other entities, including yours. Chapter 4 of Gita says, Gahana karmano gatihi, meaning it is profound and complex. Fortunately, my friends, coming out of this cycle or overcoming your karma is not that difficult. provided you know the secret of overcoming. We are spiritual students here on this channel, and in spirituality, we keep making things easier. The harder part is the practice and execution of it, which is where you need to focus. But the concept and the approach, we make it really easy. Spirituality may be hard to understand, but once you get it, you will realize it is so simple, and godly experience becomes very common. Now compare this to a system or practice or a tradition that is not focused on spirituality. There, the concept of God becomes even more and more complex. Actually, there is an effort to make this entity called God super complex in such systems which don't focus on spirituality. Because in doing so, the thought process is that more power gets assigned to that entity called God. And in front of that power, you as an individual become minuscule, distancing yourself more and more, and through that, God becomes even more inaccessible to you. Whereas in spirituality, it is the exact opposite. God, divinity, becomes simpler and simpler. And the simpler it becomes, the more powerful the experience, the more access you will have with ease. A student of spirituality experiences divinity every moment, within and around. Overcoming karma or getting over karma is like that as well. From a spiritual construct or from a spiritual approach, you can overcome it quite easily and come out of this cycle. Let me give you a very practical example, and hope this will resonate with you and you will master the technique. For this example, I'll take the action of performing a charitable act. Now you may be thinking, performing a charitable act is a honorable act, and hence, why should it get into this cause and cycle effect of karma? Well, that is not true. Because even acts of charity attract cause and effect and keep you on the cycle, even though it may be a bit easier ride on the cycle because it's a good act, but still you cannot get out of it. And your act of charity may be spawning so many other billions of acts, and you don't know if one of them is good or one of them is bad. So that's why I want to pick this example of charity, so that while it's a honorable act, it tells you why even such an act is not free from karma. So take the example of doing charity, like making a donation. Now at a high level, there are 5 steps involved when you make a donation. There is a subject involved, the one making the donation, and that is you. There is a receiver involved, or a recipient. That could be another person, or it could be an entity like a temple, it could be an orphanage, it could be anything. That is number 2. So there is a subject number 1, a receiver number 2. Then there is an actual donation itself. Number 3, actual donation. That could be money, that could be food being served, that could be an item that you want to give. And number 4, you're donating with the help of something. That could be serving food with your hands as an example, or you go to a temple to make a donation, or you're going to an orphanage in a car to make the donation, and so on. So there is something by which you're performing a donation. And number 5, lastly, there is a cause of the donation. It could be in the memory of your mother, it could be in the memory of your father, it could be for an expectation, saying you're doing a good act, for a family member, for a child, it could be anything. Now, pay close attention to each of the 5 steps I just mentioned. And you will notice why you cannot escape karma or the cycle of cause and effect. Take the subject in step number 1. It is you, or as they say, the individual has aham or minus, the characteristic of this is me, this is mine. The moment you have I, me, mine, then you are attached to the act, whatever that act could be, even if it's giving donation. The moment you are attached to it, cause and effect kicks in. Now take the receiver in step 2, which is the entity receiving the donation. Again, the words that get used could be, I'm giving it to my temple. The orphanage, I am associated with it. The orphanage, I am part of. The person, I want to help. All these drive attachment back to you or the aham, therefore cause and effect again kicks in. Take step number 3, the actual donation itself. I gave my money. I bought this item and gave. Again, you are attached to it. Even in step 3, therefore cause and effect again kicks in. The 4th step, where you are donating with the help of something. I'm donating with my hand. I'm serving with my hand. I'm doing it with my friend. I'm going there in my car. Again, you are attached. Therefore, cause and effect again kicks in. Now, the last step, the 5th step, which is, why are you doing this donation? What is the cause of donation? I'm donating it in the memory of my mother. I'm donating it in the memory of my father. I'm donating it so that my family remains healthy. Again, you're attached. Therefore, cause and effect again kicks in. So if you noticed, even in performing a honorable act of donation, there is that attachment it has created for you and to you. And when that happens, there is no escape. You are still on that cycle. Now, the charitable act itself may be because of prarabdha karma, or it could be agami karma, but that doesn't matter. In both cases, it leads to a further cause and effect or further karma. I gave you this example of an action where you are performing a charitable act just to show how even a good act impacts karma. But you can use this for any example and the outcome will be the same. One of attachment, cause and effect. Now that we went through this, now you could ask me this question: how do you escape from this thing? How do you detach yourself when performing an action? How do you overcome this karma? There is actually a very simple trick. If you notice in all the steps we went through above, the focus or the center of gravity or the anchor in the action is you. Even if the focus in a step is someone else, like let us say the receiver of the donation, still that receiver has a connection to you. So you are always connected. You are always the focus. You are the anchor. You are the pivot for each of those. The moment you are in the equation or connected, you're chained. You're stuck, meaning you cannot overcome karma. So what is the trick as Krishna gives in the Gita? The trick to overcome karma then lies in changing that locus, changing that focal point to something else other than you. And that something else is the divine or the God. Let us take the same example of donation or a charitable act and see how you can change the focus. We will still perform the same 5 steps I detailed above, but we introduce a variable called the divine. Now you can give a name and form to the divine, and let us say that is Krishna. Now you see, we go through the same 5 steps, but insert the divine Krishna in each step and connect that step to Krishna. By inserting, I mean in both thoughts and words. Now there are 2 ways by which you can introduce the divine Krishna. Recall I told you, in spirituality things should just become easier and easier. So even though I could have just given you one way, I'm giving you 2 ways Because while the first way in itself is easy, the second way is even easier. Let me start with the first way. In this method, you perform the 5 steps as I shared above, but you explicitly insert Krishna in each step, meaning you insert Krishna in thought and words. So what do? So for step 1, when you say, I'm giving this donation, you change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to make a donation. In step 2, when you say, I'm giving it to so and so, I'm giving it to this temple, I'm giving it to this orphanage, you would change it to say, with Krishna's grace, there is an opportunity to help so and so. Step 3, I'm donating food, I'm donating money. You would change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to provide for others. Step 4, I'm making the donation with my hand, or serving with my hands, or going to the orphanage in my car and making the donation. Change it to, with Krishna's grace, I have the strength and the means to make the donation. Step 5, I'm donating in the memory of my mother, my father. Change it to, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to do something in remembrance of my mother. If you're donating so that you could have a good health or a better life, change it to, I surrender to Krishna the energy that supports and sustains me. So the same 5 steps, we modified it and changed the pivot to Krishna. And you did by inserting Krishna in thoughts and words. You moved that anchor to Krishna and you did it away from you. Meaning now, each of the action or effect goes to whom? Not you, but it goes to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme and divine. Let Krishna take the burden of cause and effect. Why you? Now, for some of you, the first way may appear a bit too formal. You may say, I can keep Krishna in my thoughts, but putting Krishna in words like, with Krishna's grace, I'm able to provide for others and so on, may be too much. I just can't be doing it every time I do an action. Why not I just remember Krishna and do that action? This is where the second way of introducing the divine or Krishna comes in. And that is by just saying and thinking of a simple phrase, Om Tat Sat. This is such a powerful mantra, and the only prayer you would ever need. I did a whole video on why Om Tat Sat is the only mantra you need. Please check that out. This second way makes it really simple. You remember the divine or deity or Krishna or any other deity that you like, and you go about doing your action. In the example of offering a donation, you still perform the 5 steps, but before each step, you silently say Om Tat Sat and perform that action. This has the same effect of moving the locus, the center of gravity, the focal, away from you to the divine. And you get spared of the cause and action, or the cause and effect of that action. Or in other words, you overcome karma through that method and through this approach. You may say, all this is great, but what about all the actions I have performed till now in my previous lives where I did not have or no one told me about this trick? What about them? You got me out of this cause and effect from here on, but I'm still on that cycle because of my past actions. The treasury debt of Sanchita Karma is still there. So I'm still on the cycle. Maybe I don't have it going forward at some point, but what about all the past? Well, we have a solution again for that, coming from the Gita and the Upanishads. They come to our rescue. And the solution is simple. And that is, you surrender. Now, you would say, well, what does it mean? Solution, surrender. How do I even execute? I did again a whole video on what does it mean to surrender, but let me keep it simple here for you. If you truly surrender to the divine, then you need to learn or get into this discipline or abhyasa, as it is called, of having that conviction that you will be and you are taken care by divinity. Surrender means you are handing over the reins to the divine. It does not mean that you give up action or desires, but you gain crystal clear clarity that there's difference between a goal versus getting attached and chasing a result. The goal allows you to define a series of steps. In the way we did that in giving a donation or making a donation, you had 5 steps that you went through. So you won't eradicate that, you won't leave that. But you will go after the goal, you will execute with all your might, but what happens as an outcome or the result of that, you don't get attached to it. Why? Because when you surrender, if you recall, you gave away that reins, the control, the center of gravity, the anchor, you gave it away from you to divinity or Krishna. When such is the case, how do you control the outcome? So it's very simple in that regard, but understanding this and executing it is where the harder part is. And in that sense, don't delay. Overcome karma of all your past actions through surrender, and overcome karma of all current and future actions through the 2 ways I described. With Krishna's grace, free yourself from the shackles of cause and effect. Get off the cycle of cause and effect. Get off the cycle of karma. Gita is precisely given for that purpose, to teach us and to help us learn how you can move away from being that focal point into changing that focal onto divinity. Get started today without delay. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay blessed. It is easy to preach, but always difficult to practice what is being preached. It's not about what one did in the past. It's about what is one doing now and into the future. So when I take a topic like how to end suffering, I just want you to know that whatever I'm going to share in this video on this very important topic is what I practice. I will give you the sure shot techniques to end suffering. Follow along with me to understand the concept and get to the end to understand the techniques. Most of the videos that I create on this channel, particularly the ones that do not involve a conversation with another individual, are not just meant to be academic or textbook preaching, but they are learnings from the Gita and the Upanishad that I have put in practical use over the last several years and continue to do so. Of course, over time, with increased learning, perspectives continue to evolve and I factor them into my practice. As an example, the conversations I have with others give me different perspectives that I contemplate and I think and I put it into practice. The topic of how to end suffering is such a crucial one, and it impacts a vast majority of us. In fact, you can ask a reverse question. Who doesn't suffer? To get a grasp of suffering and deal with it, we need to understand how suffering happens. And then the techniques would then make better sense. The techniques to end it would make better sense. You see, suffering is an experience of pain and distress. The word experience is of significance, because if you do not experience, then there is no suffering at all. For it to occur, for suffering to occur, one must be conscious and aware. Under anesthesia, as an example, you don't feel the pain and the distress of a major surgery because you're not conscious or aware about it. However, when you're fully conscious, even a mosquito bite has an experience of pain and distress within you. We continue to have those experiences of pain and distress repeatedly. And of course, there is also the experience of pleasure and relief. But for some real weird reason, that experiences of pleasure and relief appear to be short-lived. And it is pain and distress that creates an impact that we cannot forget so easily. We seem to be wired to grasp the negative versus the positive. Hence, the Gita and the Upanishads say we are always in a state of samsara, meaning we are wandering through cycles of birth and death, with this roller coaster of experiences being a part of our existence. If that is the case, how do you put an end to suffering? Well, let's look at that now in detail. The two components of suffering, and understanding this will help us to understand the techniques better. Suffering actually starts from the inside. But since we are all accustomed to acknowledging suffering to be happening to us versus inside us or within us, it's always somebody else's problem, isn't it? Since we are accustomed to looking at suffering outside of us happening to us, we got to look at this first external impact and understand that. Think about your own life. There are so many external forces that you can attribute as the cause of suffering. A health issue, being denied a promotion, being denied a job even after an amazing interview, getting into an accident due to rashness of another driver, your home getting damaged due to a storm. All these are external forces acting on you, causing suffering. You may also be suffering due to a suffering being caused to somebody close to you, like losing a loved one, or a loved one suffering from a disease or an ailment like cancer. These are all external but yet happening to you. And when we think of suffering, it is this suffering that we commonly recognize. And when it has an impact on us, we call it karma. Now, many go a step further and say none can escape this suffering, as it is a debt we owe in this current life, and so on. No one is spared of these experiences. Doesn't matter who you are. Each one of us must go through these causes of suffering. But wait a second. Then there is a suffering which is within us. This is completely internal. As I said, the external cause of suffering has no impact on you unless you acknowledge and suffer within. Take that example I gave you earlier of being under anesthesia. An individual under anesthesia has no suffering due to any of the external causes. Things may be really bad out there, but the individual has no awareness or consciousness about it, hence does not suffer. Which is why the Gita and the Upanishads conclude suffering happens only when there is an internal acknowledgement. And how you deal with this internal acknowledgement defines the spectrum or the force of suffering. If you react emotionally and abruptly or instinctively, then there is a higher chance of that internal suffering. Whereas if you respond inquisitively and logically, then you lower the chances of that internal suffering. There are techniques to put an end to both these components, the external component and the internal component. You actually put an end to suffering by managing them. The better you become at managing, then you diminish the impact. And you will reach a point where you end suffering completely. Now, you can never eliminate the external component of suffering fully, as no one is spared of the external component because it's beyond your control. But for sure, you can take care of managing the suffering within you, and through that is how you completely end suffering and stop suffering. This repeated aspect of managing is called abhyasa, or repetitive practice. To manage and lessen the impact of the external component of suffering, there are two ways to do it, or two techniques you can adopt. In the real world, the first and common way individuals use to lessen the impact is a very obvious one. It is through money. Using money as a way to manage, we tend to lessen the impact. And it is effective to a certain extent. Getting the best treatment, the most comfortable couch, a comfortable car, a big and spacious house are all things individuals do to reduce the impact of external aspects of suffering. Money in that regard really helps you and is a very effective way. There's a reason why we work hard and save. There's a reason why we pay hefty insurance premiums for healthcare so that we can get the best. And there's a reason why we save for retirement, because we want to be comfortable. We do all of these things and start accumulating money so that we have enough of it to minimize pain and distress. Now, who defines enough is again an individual aspect. And if you don't have contentment with that enough, then you would never come out of that external aspect of suffering. Which is precisely why they say money cannot buy everything. So even with the best care or enough money or comforts, you may still suffer. This is where the second technique of managing the external component of suffering comes in handy. And in my view, it's an absolute must to reduce the impact to the bare minimum. The Gita and Upanishads have this answer. They have this technique. And they prescribe us to be in a satsang. Sat meaning purity and sang meaning being in the company of like-minded, pious, good and compassionate individuals. It is a satsang that truly softens the blow of this external component of suffering. A satsang helps you through suffering without expectation. It provides social support, provides moral support, and in many cases, the individuals within the satsang raise up to provide you physical, financial, and operational support. You go to temples to be in a satsang, otherwise there's no need at all. You have God everywhere, including your puja room, then why go to a temple? That's because a place like a temple can be a powerful platform to develop a satsang and be part of that community. Now, your role when you are part of a satsang is to focus on service and giving. It is through this service that you lessen the impact of the external component of suffering and help alleviate suffering for others as well. The Gita refers to the 3 Ds, Daya, Dana and Dhamma: compassionate, charitable, and self-restraint. The Gita says, be part of a satsang, be compassionate, be charitable, and be self-restraining. Each morning you wake up saying, Lord, put me to good use today for the help of the satsang. Constant abhyasa of this helps you manage the external aspect of suffering and reduce it to a bare minimum. Now let us move to the internal aspect, or as I indicated earlier, the real suffering. Without your awareness of internal suffering, there is no suffering at all. This is where again the wisdom of the scriptures come to help us. To manage this internal aspect of suffering and through that completely end suffering, we do it through three ways. Number one, you move to a mode of responsibility and duty in every action of life. Moving to a mode of responsibility and duty in every action of life. Thinking about, I am responsible for maintaining a healthy body and hence I will exercise. And if I am impacted by an illness, the body is no different than a car that requires maintenance and repair. So it is changing that mindset to be of responsibility and duty. It's like saying I'm responsible to train my mind to respond and not react, hence I will be thoughtful in my answer. It is saying it is my duty to take care of my family and loved ones, and hence I will do so responsibility. Number two, not letting selfish love overshadow responsibility and duty. Arjuna in the Gita is a classic example. He let selfish love overshadow his own responsibility and duty. And similarly, his opponent let fatherly love turn a blind eye to a deceitful son, resulting in a heinous war. Number three, moving away from fear to faith. This can only happen if you start inquiring and move away from blind beliefs. Faith also shows when you develop a respect for what you have, even if it is minimal, and having a respect to everything around you. The satsang I described earlier to manage the external component of suffering provides you a platform that you get started on, that to get started and start developing this internal management of suffering and mature on the above three ways that I described. It is only through this management of internal suffering that you put an end to suffering. The right type of satsang helps you develop spiritually, develop a discipline that you extend from your personal to professional life as well. Use the three ways of managing internal suffering and the two ways of managing external suffering that I described above. Get into a satsang immediately, pour water on the fire of suffering, and get into the mode of being peaceful. And that is the only way, while being still on the roller coaster of samsara, you will enjoy the ride. Because there's no way you can get out of the roller coaster, but you absolutely can enjoy the ride, and you enjoy the ride by completely putting an end to suffering, following the techniques I've described above. Hope this helps. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay healthy, stay blessed.